Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Cheltenham Raw, the show brought to you by oddschecker and PricedUp as we look ahead to the Cheltenham Festival. I'm your host, George Elek, delighted to be joined as ever by oddschecker's tipster, Andy Holding, and welcoming back Johnny Ward for his second appearance on the Cheltenham Raw. Just under 3 weeks to go, 19 days left. Excited, Andy?
Very much so, yeah. And once you sort of get through all the trials, the DOF, the big races at Newbury, the Denman, the Game Spirit, and then this weekend, the Adonis, the Dovecote, one or two handicaps here, then everywhere, and a few side shows here and there. It pretty much is all roads are leading into Cheltenham then, isn't it? We just need to see the handicap weights. I think that'll determine where a lot of horses go regards maybe running off top weight in some of the bigger races, the bigger handicaps like the Pertemps and the Martin Piper, whether they go down the sort of championship route, like horses like the Wool Park, for instance, the crossover horses rated in the 150s. And I think JP holds the key to quite a few of those cards to be played. So quite a bit to sort of work out between now and then, but actually excitement levels, getting very much close to fever pitch.
Johnny, you coming over for it?
I'm actually working for a bookmaker in Milton Keynes. I work for Ladbrokes during the festival. I wouldn't really have any work for Cheltenham, so it's just the reality of being a freelance journalist. I'm lucky to have the work I have in terms of kind of betting and horses and football and a nice mixture. And so I go over to the Ladbrokes studio and actually have great fun. Kind of we preview in the morning one day, and the next day then we just preview right up to the start of the first race, and just hoping we don't have too many horses scratched. There have been some significant kind of non-runners in the last week or two, but it's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait.
Where else would you want to be Cheltenham Tuesday than Milton Keynes? Right, let's get into the show. This is the preview where we're going to be looking at the Champion Hurdle, the Mares Hurdle, the two races pretty well linked this year, with the top of the market dominated by and the Mares by two horses that are also second and third favourite for the Champion Hurdle. So we'll get onto that in a second, and then we'll have a look as well at the Stayers Hurdle, which we haven't spoken that much about so far on the Cheltenham Raw. Maybe reasons for why. Make sure if you haven't already got a PricedUp account, do sign up with PricedUp. They are a new firm who are doing things a bit differently. They're boosting plenty of bets across different sports every single day. They're boosting loads of Andy selections on the Cheltenham Raw over the course of the show as well. So if you haven't already got a PricedUp account, make sure you do. They're up there on the oddschecker grids as well, so you can see when they are best price, which is relatively often too. I'm looking to be aggressive with their pricing, so make sure you do sign up with them. Before we get into the Cheltenham preview, and then we're also going to have a look at Kempton this weekend as well. It's getting a little bit too close for horses to kind of go back to that, but there should be some pointers we might be able to get this weekend at Cheltenham ahead of the festival as well. But before we do, Andy, we had some decent enough racing last weekend at Haydock and Ascot. It didn't feel like probably top quality enough, really, though, to give us too much of a steer in terms of the festival. Are there any horses that have run since we last spoke last Thursday who you've got in your notebook with a view to Presby Park?
Not as such, no. There was a nice horse of Willie Mullins's that won at Gowran on the Saturday called Blue Lemons. Looking at his time figure that we got anyway, certainly compares favourably with some of Willie's better ones that he's run so far, the likes of Lady Vega Allen, Willie de Hool. He'd be up there with those. Golden Nose posted quite a good time when she won the Kingwell Hurdle. That was a 73 that we got, which is not far off the sort of big boys. You want to be sort of nudging sort of at 78, 79, 80 if you're going to be champion hurdle class, but she's certainly a contender of sorts if she runs down the mare's route. But that was it really. A lot of them were sort of, you like the classic getaways who beat St. Sam. He'll probably go punches down Fairy House. There was a nice bumper horse of Nicky Richards' called Upon Tweed, which I put in my blog for my column. I think he'll probably go to Aintree. So there wasn't really that many sort of throwing their cap in the ring with regards to Cheltenham.
Johnny?
Same horses, Andy. Actually, I watched Gormley. I mean, just the whole situation around Michael O'Sullivan. I have to say, it's been an appalling week for the sport. And when racing was taking place on at the weekend, knowing that Michael was in a very bad way, it was kind of hard to. It really was hard to take it all in. But I suppose the show goes on today at Punchestown, and his family will hope that the racing community will rally around them and all that. And I suppose that's going on Saturday, that Juvenile hurdle, Blue Lemons. I was very keen to take him on with Cool One. Cool One had run a really nice race against the Willie Mullins train winner at Naas, and no star necessarily on the flat, but stays well and handles the ground well, and really did pretty much everything right, and was quite well backed, taking on Blue Lemons. Blue Lemons is by Blue Point. I think maybe the second horse of Blue Points to even jump a hurdle at this early stage of his career, and on pedigree and on his form, it looked a massive question mark as to whether he'd get a testing 2 miles on soft ground. I imagine in running he trained big enough, because there was one hurdle down the back where Cool One was very aggressively ridden and he kind of out jumped him at stages. Blue Lemon showed stamina that I wasn't expecting him to have, and he can only run in the Triumph if he runs the Cheltenham. He's around about 33 to 1, 40 to 1. The Triumph, there's another 1 or 2 interesting horses with a view to the Triumph running this weekend, but he's one I'd be keeping an eye on. If he rocks up to Cheltenham, I wouldn't be ruling him out. I think he looks like a horse that has lots of pace, but he obviously stays as well. He's trained by Willie Mullins, and people are sort of jumping to the conclusion that this is an exceptional Triumph that boils down to 2, maybe 3 horses, but it might not be the case as well. He's very exciting, I think.
Blue Lemon's 25 to 1 with PricedUp for the Triumph, so one to maybe keep an eye on there. Let's get into the festival previews, and we're going to start with the Champion Hurdle. This is a race that we've spoken about a lot, but I'm kind of going to package up the Champion Hurdle and the Mares Hurdle into one conversation, because obviously it'll be dominated by who runs where. Constitution Hill is a 4 to 7 favourite for the Champion Hurdle with PricedUp. Brighter Days Ahead 9 to 4, Lossiemouth 9 to 2. State Man 6 to 1, Golden Ace 20 to 1, Burdett Road 25 to 1, 40 to 1, bar those. And then a look at the mares prices as well, where we've got Brighter Days Ahead 8 to 15, Lossiemouth 5 to 4, Jada Grugy 9 to 2, July Flower 9 to 2, Car Guess 6 to 1, Golden Ace 8 to 1, Take No Chances 9 to 1. So I mean, it's kind of guesswork at the moment. A quick look at the exchange would have you say that it's all pretty much up in the air, where Brighter Days Ahead for the mares is trading at about 2 to 1, Lossiemouth at around about, I think last price match was 9 to 2, 11 to 2. So who knows? Effectively, at this stage, it kind of feels like we don't know. Brighter Days Ahead trading at about 4 to 1 for the Champion Hurdle. At this stage, Johnny, if you were to hang your hat on who lines up where, what would you be thinking?
Yeah, I've said all along I didn't expect the 4 big ones to turn up for various reasons. Constitution Hill has been quite fragile, and there was always the possibility that he might miss it. All seems to be good with him. State Man was the one you're thinking, for all that he's been effectively under a bit of a cloud this season in some respects. Still hard to know where he's at. He is going to run in the race. No other option to him. And then I was definitely expecting one of the mares, maybe both of the mares, to reroute, because Brighter Days Ahead is still quite young. I have a feeling that Eddie O'Leary, who would have a big say in matters, feels that she's better over a longer trip. I don't see any suggestion that Gordon Elliott wants to run an anthem other than the Champion Hurdle, and he will usually get his way. But Lossiemouth now comes in under more of a cloud, obviously, after her fall, and the fact that she was brushed aside by Constitution Hill, really, at Kempton. So I still feel it's a little bit unlikely that all 4 run in the race. Now, there are only 10 left at this stage. This is it's not great that we've only 10 horses left in the Champion Hurdle, but at the moment it's shaping up to be a cracker. And, the bookmakers are betting each way, and 6 to 1 is the top price that you can get from PricedUp on State Man. And if you are back in State Man at this stage, I put him up anti-post in the Racing TV website when there was little racing on maybe a month, 6 weeks ago, when he was 11 to 1 on the basis that, well, he will run in the race, all going well, and he should be in the first 3. That still applies, but, there's really no evidence whatsoever he can win this race without something happening to Constitution Hill. State Man, for me, his Cheltenham form isn't good enough to win this. Even his last run at Leopardstown, where he beat his stablemate by, 6 lengths or so, kind of, kept up to his work, wouldn't be great. And he was brushed aside, obviously, and hammered by Brighter Days Ahead. So I have a feeling she probably will run here. And I suspect Lossiemouth might reroute to the champion or to the mares, for all that Willie says that this is still the plan for her. Like, really, there's no doubt whatsoever what should happen here. All four of these horses should run. They're basically owned by extremely wealthy people who, some of them are in the autumn of their life, should be running the horses in this race, not the Mayor's Hurdle, which is a race that shouldn't be even at the festival. Racing Cheltenham last year faced a lot of challenges in terms of crowds down, not the interest that it would have had in other years, which was quite alarming for me. And we need that first day at Cheltenham. We're not getting the Arkle that we hoped we'd get. We need that first day at Cheltenham to have that pivot race, to have a salivating in the meantime. And I really do hope the four of them show up. Right at the moment, I have to be honest, I don't see a bet in the race, because Constitution Hill, he's with PricedUp here, he's
4 to 7.
4 to 7. So that's, to be fair, that's kind of one of the better prices around. But he's bigger on the exchanges. He will absolutely be at least 4 to 7 on the day. I unless a miracle happens relative to the other horses, he will. He still has a little bit of. There's still some people wondering, is he quite as good as he was? He's had problems, and he's had his odd disappointment on the gallops. Blah blah blah. He's not going to be 4 to 7 on the day. He will. Bookmakers will take him on to an extent. They want money in, so you can't back him. Brighter Days Ahead. For me, if I had to have a bet, I'd probably back her on the basis of the Leopardstown run, but I still find that quite hard to believe. What happened that day, Lossiemouth, I can't have her. She's really not proven that she can do it at 2 miles at this stage. She didn't jump fast enough at Kempton, and then she fell at Leopardstown, and it was a heavy fall. It was a pretty heavy fall, and I can't have her at all. On the back of that, I wouldn't be confident she'd be in the first 3, to be honest, even to back her each way. Stateman, if you get me 6 to 5, he's in the first 3 as the plays part of the bet. I'd absolutely take that. 6 to 1, I'd make him closer to 10 to 1 to win the race. So I and nothing else can win it. So that's a pretty roundabout way of saying I don't see a bet in the race at the moment.
Andy, you've made your feelings very clear on this, thinking that the 2 mares should also, as Ronnie said, should be coming to the champion hurdle here. Do you think there's an element where there's a bit of cat and mouse? Is Mullins waiting to see what Elliot does and before making the decision? Is it going to be a case where they probably end up being split?
I think there's more chance, perhaps, a Maggie Thatcher U-turn kind of situation regarding Lossiemouth. I know they've said all along that that's like what they wanted to do. They've geared all the season around the champion hurdle, but she's already been relatively easily brushed aside by Constitution Hill. How she would have gone on the other day if she stood up next to Stateman, I don't know. But the damning, you've probably got the best mare that we've seen for quite a while in there as well, Brighter Days Ahead. So they'll be hoping and praying that I think Gordon Elliott does go down the route with the champion with Brighter Days Ahead. And I'm very much hoping that is the case. I suppose the only indication that we've got as punters, and again, I've said this before, part of this game is reading between the lines and trying to second guess what they're thinking just by little sound bites here, there, and everywhere. Gordon Elliott has gone on record as saying that he's always wanted to win the champion hurdle. I think it's the one big race that's eluded him that he's always thought, yeah, I don't want to kind of like have that missing on my CV. So I don't really see the massive urge to run in the mares and to sort of improve her stock if she won that. Whereas, let's take on Constitute while he's in his pomp, and let's have a kind of like a mare of dawn run stature. You're not going to get that by winning a mare's hurdle and beating the likes of July, Flower, and Carla Conti and all that kind. Those kind
not
of
only
crowd,
that, Andy, but the reaction they'd get if they did it really wouldn't be good.
I just don't see it. I said this before. I think if you're a small owner, you're a syndicated owner, and you've got a chance of winning at a Cheltenham Festival, your dream is going to be realised by winning a mare's hurdle. Absolutely, I totally get it. But the Alivas and the Richies of this world, does it really mean that much to them that to win a hollow kind of mare's hurdle at 1 to 2 or 2 to 5? I'd like to think that they're sort of like got more aspirations and they got more ambition than that. And I think the second thing as well, which I think is leaning me towards believing that Brighter Days Ahead is going to go for the champion hurdle, is the inclusion of the sacrificial lamb, King of Kingsfield, who ultimately did the damage to that race at Leopardstown, where Stateman couldn't go the gallop, was beaten 20 odd lengths. the fact that he's in there is a like I say, small steer to perhaps how the O'Learys and Gordon Elliott are thinking. They're thinking, well, let's gun King of Kingsfield in the race. Let's run it exactly as we did at Leopardstown. Let's make it a brutal test over a stiff 2 miles like they did at the Dublin track, and let's see how good Constitution Hill is, because we know Brighter Days Ahead can handle, a massively strongly run 2 miles and still have loads left in the tank at the same time. So that's my reading of it. I think the sort of 9 to 4 non-run no bet across the board, generally speaking, is fair enough, because you've got the safety net as if she runs. She's not going to be massively much bigger on the day, maybe 5 to 2, 11 to 4, you could argue. And I think she's the only genuine one that can beat Constitution Hill in those circumstances. Put it this way, the figures that we've got so far, at their absolute best, we've got 79 straight State Man, 79 Lossiemouth when he finished second to Constitution Hill, 80 Constitution Hill, and we've got Brighter Days Ahead, 80 from Leopardstown. So there's nothing between all 4 of them at their absolute sort of peak. And Constitution Hill's 4 to 7, which I just don't quite see myself. So in short, I think Brighter Days Ahead would be my pick now as we speak, and fingers crossed they decide to do the right thing and run her in the Champion Hurdle. Let's have that race that we all kind of anticipating, and really would whet the appetite for the Monday now that the Tuesday now we've lost the other big match, which would have been Sergino against Marlborough.
So, let's skip on then to the Mares' Hurdle, where I've already run through the market. But Johnny, if we're looking at this and thinking fair chance Brighter Days Ahead goes for the Champion Hurdle, so a line through her at 8 to 15, doubts around Lossiemouth for the reasons you mentioned a second ago, does that make this possibly quite a good betting race as it stands now, with massive doubts about the top 2 in the market?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And you're looking at people can kind of almost forget races like this because they're concentrating on the Champion Hurdle. But I think it's definitely worthwhile, particularly with non-run no bet situations now, to kind of link 2 or 3 races together, make a judgment on one, and what's the collateral damage that will have in another. And this race obviously applies very much to that. And it might turn out, in an ideal scenario, it turns out that maybe Jay de Grugy, who's running today as we record this, who obviously was only 2 to 1 last year at Cheltenham, I didn't think she'd any major excuses on the day. She could end up being favourite, as July Flower that Andy mentioned could be favourite. She, beat Calaconti very well the last day. She's a very interesting type in that she was running over 3 miles in France. We last saw her, and Emery de Bromhead's horse seems to be coming back into form. And it just might turn into that sort of a race that is essentially what a mare's race should be. A, decent but not amazing quality, and B, not at Cheltenham. Now, we can't get that part, but anyway, it is what it is. I'm going to take a chance on one here, and I'm just looking at if I can find my prices here for our sponsor. It is Dysart Enos. Now, clearly Dysart Enos has been fragile. She had a setback, was it 3 days before Cheltenham last year. Her run in the Greatwood for me, when she was beaten behind Burdev Road, was a little bit fresh in the day. Like, that was perfectly good form in a good renewal of the race. And Burdev Road is one of those horses who could potentially sort of sneak into a place in the Champion Hurdle, and is probably at his peak this season. And she was still sent off favourite. Clearly they figured that she was better than her mark of 131. She did bomb at Ascot, but they've obviously, the plan is to run her in this race. She was trading way shorter last year going to the race, taking on Brighter Days Ahead. And at the prices now, there's at the prices, she's the sort of bet I would have. I feel she will run in the race, and if they can deliver her in the form that she's in, sort of in the Greatwood of that, she will be thereabouts. As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there's a star in this race at all. Jay de Grugy, when last seen, I'm conscious of the fact that she's running today as we record that she beat Spindleberry in a 2.5 mile Fairy House race on heavy ground. Her limitations were exposed in this race last year. Golden Flower, or July Flower rather, did look good the last year, beating Jatara and Calaconti, and probably deserves to be favourite in the race, but probably not a star at the same time. And if Fergal O'Brien can get Dysart Enos there on the day, she's not going to be that sort of price for me.
25 to 1 with priced up about Dysart Enos there, Johnny's selection for the Mares' Hurdle. Andy, how do you see this?
Well, I think if there's ever an advocate for one race to be lost at the Cheltenham Festival for reasons that we're all outlining here, this is it. it just basically just gives the sort of big powers license to run roughshod over it, leave punters in the dark. The fact that they're not nailing their colours to the mast until a week before the race suggests that it's not a race they're necessarily massively targeting in particular. It's just there as a race, an opportunity, isn't it, to win and to hoover up another win for the big powers. So I kind of feel as though if we lost this race, it'd take away a lot of the sort of toing and froing and guessing that we're all on about at the moment. Don't put it this way: if the mares was off the calendar and it wasn't there, I don't think anyone would be absolutely in floods of tears, would they? So, looking at it from a betting perspective, like I say, if you're having to sort of go into it now thinking, well, Brighter Days Ahead, Lossy Mouth probably will go champion hurdle. That's the way I see it. Then July Flower at 5-1, non-runner, no bet. Looks a great opportunity, doesn't it? Represents a stable that have done really well in this race, in many guises over the last sort of decade. She was a good winner at Leopardstown. She did have the race run to a suitor, arguably, when three of the horses went off in front. Jatara and Carla Conti were the sort of the main ones to suffer from that gallop early, and she did sort of wait in the wings and pick them off late on. But who's to say she won't be ridden exactly the same at Cheltenham off the back of a strong pace? She's a quality mare. She did a good time that day. So I think she's at the moment the horse I'd be sort of looking at with so many ifs and buts. I mean, we're even talking about Gordon Elliott, with Carla Conti maybe running her in the Martin Pipe, because if he's running Brighter Days Ahead, or he doesn't run Brighter Days Ahead, he might even end up supplementing Wadu, who was talked about as a Martin Pipe horse and looks quite well handicapped on that Cheltenham win. But if Brighter Days Ahead goes in the champion, then Gordon Elliott would like to have perhaps several strings to his bow, because he'll want a runner in the race, won't he? So maybe Wadu might be a horse parachuted in from nowhere, and she's not even quoted with most firms. So it just shows you, like, we just don't know. We're just completely guessing with horses being supplemented in, horses maybe going in other races. It's not great 2 weeks away to be sort of still talking in this sort of frame of mind, when we should be talking about, oh yeah, this is definitely going to go here. We know that's going there, and we just don't know.
All will become clear. July Flower 92 with priced up for the mares hurdle. Should also say that currently priced up, not no bet. So if you do have a bet of these prices and the horse comes out, that will be settled as a loser. So be wary of that. On to the stayers now. Tiapu, the even money favourite, owned by the Lee 6-1. Lucky Place 15-2. The Wall Park 12-1. Gar Road 16-1. Rocky's Diamond 16-1. Langadan 18-1. 20-1 bar those. Andy, Tiapu going to be one of these short price favourites that probably goes into all the multis after victory last year in what looks like a pretty poor renewal of the race.
Yeah. I think at least this year he's got another pool of horses, loosely speaking, coming through that at least offer a little bit more dynamic into it. Whereas you look at the race last year, which he won, with the greatest respect to Tiapu, he had a lot of horses drawing their pension. Flooring Porter, certainly as a herder anyway, isn't probably the force he was. Obviously a chaser, totally different ball game. Home by the Lee's now going to be 10. You got the likes of Serre de Belay, was a 12-year-old, Asterion Falonge, he's now 11. Noble Yates, he's more of a chaser. Dasher Drasher, he's a 12-year-old. Crambo didn't fail to act at Cheltenham yet again. Paisley Park, for crying out loud, was in there last year. Janadil, Sir Gerard.
Some of us look back at Paisley Park, Andy. You believe it?
Well, exactly, yeah. You get where I'm coming from. There wasn't any horse that, he could be quite useful. Like let's say, for instance, Lucky Place this season. He's a 6-year-old, still lightly raced. He could improve massively for stepping up to 3 miles. We don't know. Tiapu was the same when he tried 3 miles for the first time. They've got to do it at some stage, and I think Nicky Henderson's gone on record thinking, well, I'd rather do it at Cheltenham rather than have me bubble burst, let's say, in the Cleve hurdle. So, he's decided to sort of keep well away from all the sort of potential targets he could have had along the way. You've got the Wall Park in there as well. It was a massive eye catcher for me in the Long Walk hurdle. I wouldn't say he should have won, but had he jumped a little bit better and a bit less sloppily down the back, given the way he stayed on, I think he would have been more of a potent force. He's got Cheltenham form. But again, we're talking about handicaps with him. He's weighted 152. He'll have to do a side de Burley in the Pertemps. That could be a possibility. Rocky's Diamond, he's only a 5-year-old. Unlikely, I know, but at least he's young, fresh blood coming through. And, he won a preeminent trial at Gower in the Galmore Hurdle. And then you've got the likes of Gower Road and Montmirail, who are proven Cheltenham horses. So at least there is a little bit more substance and a bit more depth to this year's race. And that there's other horses to talk about other than the old stagers. Langadan, for instance, home by the Lee, he seems to be in the form of his life and revitalised it a year on, having had 2 stabs at it. So, yeah, I think Teahupoo will probably have more on his plate than he did last year. The race was very slowly run. It was running a 6 seconds slower time than the Pertemps final. So if you like the class and the speed that Teahupoo's got over 2-2.5 miles was able to be played out more like the way that race that your connections would have liked it to be played out. I don't think they wanted a brutal end-to-end 3-mile gallop to really test him. But maybe that might not be the case this year with several front runners in there like Gower Road. So I'd be looking to take him on. If I was going to throw one in completely from left field, and I've got to come up with something original to say, everyone could tip Teahupoo or the Snidey each way horses, but I genuinely believe that at 40-1, 33-1, Montmirail isn't an absolute complete mythical. He got beat by Strong Leader early in the season when Strong Leader was at the peak of his powers. Obviously, he's run poorly since, but I think he's just slightly gone off the ball for one reason or another. But he chased down Gower Road to good effect here last time out on atrocious ground. I was there that day, and it was really hard work. And Gower Road had his day, but I thought Montmirail stayed on really nicely. And looking at the circuit comparisons in last year's stayers to the Pertemps, as I've just said, the Pertemps came out better than the Stayers Hurdle. So I think he was winning quite a good version of the Pertemps last season. And he's one of the few course and distance winners in the field, and he's 33-1, 40-1. So at this stage, as we're chatting away, I think he represents the value. And if he runs, which is likely on the day, and you can get 4 or 5 places, I'd definitely be looking to get in with Montmirail some way, shape or form to hit the board at the very least.
Pertemps final winner at 25-1 SP last year. Montmirail there for Andy, 33-1. Currently we're priced up for the Stayers Hurdle. Andy keen to take on Teahupoo. Are you of the same mind, Johnny?
It's just prices really, George. At around about the price he is now, I wouldn't be pushed on it. See what he's like on the day. Again, he's the type of horse that bookmakers, depending on how the week is going, they'll probably happily stretch him out. I was actually disappointed with him against Lossiemouth. I know they didn't go very fast, but the way that she did plenty wrong in the race, and he was completely brushed aside by her. Maybe 2.5 miles slowly running yielding ground isn't his thing, and he was sublime in the race last year. But as Andy says, it does look better this year. Home by the Lee, he's actually having his 4th go in the race, and he's 10 years of age. And I'm surprised I am putting him up, but I think there is a real ground to believe that he is better this year. His performance at Leopardstown when the price he went and run was like people had never watched him before. But at the same time, to go from the position he was in to win him by 6 lengths, it was a hell of an effort. Joseph O'Brien, he's a fantastic target trainer, and I know he's come into the festival fresh before, but 2 years ago, I thought he was going to be pulled up. I really fancied him after a bad mistake in the first circuit. He ran an extraordinarily good race. I was disappointed in him last year, but he probably wasn't going into the race with the same profile as this year, albeit a year older, and he was still only beaten 6 lengths in third. He still managed to place, and he sort of stayed on quite well on that occasion. I did a recent preview for IrishRacing.com with JJ Slevin, and you get a really good vibe about this horse this year. The way they have him at home, even JJ, I think, is implying that he's going to ride him a little bit differently. He has a couple of ideas up his sleeve in a race that's going to be strongly run. So in the form that he's in this year, if he's thereabouts at the second last, he's going to be placed at worst for me. He's in a great nick. The one horse, if Andy's given one at a big price, I'm going to give Mystical Power as one to keep an eye on. Willie Mullins does not have any sort of a hand in this race. And when Mystical Power won at Punchestown after I'd had a point, I think, with Andy last year, I was saying to myself, this horse has to step up and trip. Now, this year has been a complete write-off, really, but he's still left in this. And on pedigree for me, with the way he races and his pedigree, I think there's every chance he's worth a shot at 3 miles. And just keep an eye on him if he does run in the race. I've seen a couple of horses of Willie's well backed in races like this before. I'm thinking of Classical Dream, like hammered in the Punchestown renewal of this horse stepping up and trip. So he's definitely one. I think it's just a little bit too early to write him off, and he could have the class to really improve over this trip, for all that the Supreme form is not working out. If he runs, I'd be fascinated to see how he gets on. But with the proviso that it'd be amazing if a horse won the Stayers Hurdle on his 4th attempt, and he's a 10 years of age. He's still only second favourite. I actually do feel Home by the Lee will run a big race.
Home by the Lee 6-1, second favourite behind Tiapu, and Mystical Power 22-1. Only 2 starts ago was sent off. 6-5, joint favourite with Sergino at Newcastle. Obviously, been beaten by Sergino in Brighton Days Ahead by miles over his last 2 starts, over 2 miles. But this is a different test entirely, and will be interesting if Willie does step him up a mile up to the Stayers trip. Let's get into this weekend's racing then, and we're going to go through the card at Kempton quickly before I let you guys go. If there's any Cheltenham insights, then obviously bring them up. But it does feel like maybe we're a bit too close to the festival for that, but we'll see. We'll start with the 150, the Pendle Novice Chase. Rubald is the 13-8 favourite, ahead of Imperial Saint at 5-2. Ashdale Bob 6-1, Boomborn 17-2, Mark of Gold 10-1, and Blue 40-1. Andy, anything you like here?
Well, there's definitely no Cheltenham Festival clues here as such. There's some links into the form through by proxy via other horses, like Robo will represent the Load of Sud form, and Imperial Saint will represent Moon d'Orange's form, etc. for a handicap. So, yeah, there is it filters through the system one way or the other. I do think Rubo is absolutely tailor-made for this race, by the way. He absolutely loves it round Kempton, likes flat track. All his best form up to now has been over 2 miles. But you look at his last 2 runs, he got, beaten up by Ballyburn and Sergino first time out of the fences, which was very much a sighter for me as far as I could see. He never at any stage engaged like he normally does. He normally makes the running. And he's just a bit done for toe through his race last time out at Warwick behind Load of Sud. But to my eyes, he did all his best work at the finish that day, so much so that Harry Skelton had the fright of his life jumping the last when he went for Load of Sud, and there wasn't probably as much underneath the bonnet as there looked to be, and Robert was closing him down. But he's now had 2 spins. He goes back to his beloved Kempton. The ground's going to be ideal for him. It looks like they're not going to get too much rain, so he wants nice ground. I just think he'll have too much speed for these, and I think he'll be ridden aggressively this time. And now they've had a couple of runs over his under his belt to get his eye in. Imperial Saint, he probably more as an Aintree horse. Maybe they might be thinking, obviously they'll skip Cheltenham with him, but he seems to be all his best forms going right-handed, like Aintree, Newbury, Cheltenham, etc. This will be a different kettle of fish taken on Robo. As far as I could see, the other 4 might not necessarily be in the class of Robo. So yeah, he'd do for me. I think, was it 2-1 top price, something like that?
13-8.
Right. Okay. Right. Yeah, it's a bit tight. 30-8's a bit tighter than anticipated, but yeah, he'd be the one I'd be looking to get with anyway, if I was going to have a bet.
Johnny, are you in agreement?
Yeah, just obviously has that question mark stepping up to this trip for the first time. I imagine Ashdale Bob will be ridden aggressively by James Bowen. He's actually a 10-year-old now, and I'm a little bit surprised he runs here. We haven't seen him since August when he won at Galway. He's very well backed that day, and to be fair to the horse, he's been in great nick this year, and he's taken well to reverting to chasing at this stage of his life. Beat the Company Sergeant, who's not a bad horse, at Kilbeggan, and as I said, then he beat Sail of at Galway. I think he's entered in something at Cheltenham, so I'm kind of wondering. He's entered in the Jack Richards at Cheltenham, so I am kind of wondering, is this a sighter for that? But at the prices, if he's ridden aggressively, he might do him for toe, albeit giving him £5, but not a race that we're getting heavily involved in.
On to the Adonis Juvenile Hurdle then, over 2 miles, the 2:25. There was some hope in some quarters that Nicky might play his hand here with Lalamba, but that hasn't been the case. Mondo Man, the 4-7 favourite, ahead of OPEC at 11-2, St Pancras 15-2, Sauvignon 10-1, Mambo number 5 20-1, Bursenel 66-1. Again, trappy-ish race this. Johnny, what do you make of the 4-7 about the favourite?
This is a race that could have some relevance in terms of Cheltenham because of Mondo Man. His form on the flat, obviously, the price he was costing. He's only 58 behind Lamba. I'd actually take a lot of positives out of the run at Ascot. If you read the race and post analysis, it focuses a lot on how free he was. He was free, and particularly so early in the race when he was very free. But a lot of hurdlers will get away with that. He wasn't that bad. He looked like he just looked like he wanted a stronger pace, and he wants a bit of experience over hurdles. He is a middle distance horse, not like he's a miler, so he should definitely be building on that. He's definitely a dark horse for the Triumph. I mean, you're not obviously confident he beat Lamba again, but 100% I'm confident there's more to come from this horse as he learns experience. I mean, if he can't beat OPEC the filly here, you'd be very, very disappointed. The one problem you might have is that he'd race freely again, but Savillon was so disappointed, sent off 10s at Cheltenham the last day. I don't know what to make of him now. And Paul Nicholls, I suppose, was under a small bit of a cloud afterwards on the day, but Mondo Man, if he settled, should have way too much ability for these. But I'd be just more inclined. He's going to be sort of 4 to 6, 4 to 7. I'd be more inclined to keep an eye out for how he copes with the race with a view to running at Cheltenham. And this is a race I remember when Solo won 5 years ago. I was all over him for Cheltenham. That didn't work out. Tritonic, kind of similar. He was well fancied in the Triumph. That didn't. Maybe sometimes it looks a better prep than it is for the Triumph. But I do feel there's a lot to take from Mondo Man's run at Ascot. His jumping wasn't bad at all for a very good flat horse. He actually jumps well, and he's very interested for the Triumph, I think.
14 to 1 for the Triumph about Mondo Man. You in agreement, Andy?
Yeah, I think this one will have some kind of ramification regards Triumph Hurdle. I think it'll give the Lambert camp the much needed boost that they want, because I don't know what's going on here, because I mean, Nicky Henderson had a chance to run either one of Lalumba and Palladium to give him some more practice for the Triumph Hurdle, and for one reason or another it declined. Maybe it might have been a ground situation. I know the pair of them both worked in midweek. They both did their last gallop prior to see whether they were going to come to Kempton the other day at Seven Barrows, and I don't know whether they both worked badly or they. Like I say, I can't quite see why at least one of them isn't in there. It's obviously upset the market because they were sort of 6 to 4, 2 to 1 respectively, and now both don't go. It's a bit of a shame, really, because we're now left with an odds-on poke and not a huge amount of competition behind.
Unless you've got a Mondo Man anti-post ticket, then you're happy.
Oh, cool, absolutely, yeah. If you've read the markets like you were looking this week, you could see that everyone wanted to back Mondo Man. You could have got 2 to 1, 7 to 4, and if you read between the lines, you knew Lalamba and Palladium weren't going to run. It's Bob's your uncle kind of thing. I mean, he should win, really. I mean, he's a quality horse on the flat. He was fifth to look the Vega, wasn't he, in the French Derby. Ran well beyond Calandagan at Ascot. There were then talks about him running in the Arc, but he's obviously he's been bought perhaps for other things. And Josh and Gary Moore, they're more than capable, as you saw with Goshen, of doing some damage with good juvenile hurdlers. OPEC was well beaten last time out. He's hard to fancy. Savillon was pulled up at Cheltenham behind East India Dock. It's not the total end of the world, because there was a horse pulled up behind East India Dock the other day, which won a Ludlow handicap. I think it was one of Martin Keithley's, called Consonance. So I mean, he franked the East India Dock form line at Cheltenham in no certain terms. St Pancras, he went on to win next time out at Musselburgh. So if you're all a Lumber fan, you're looking for that form line to be boosted again. So like I say, at least we get a little bit more the pieces of the puzzle. Which form lines are the best, Lalamba or East India Dock, based on these horses having all run against them at some stage. But look, as far as a betting angle, I just don't see it. I think Mondo Man will win if he settles, and the one way to settle him perhaps is to go off from him from the front and take all that out of the equation.
On to the Dovecote Novice Hurdle now, over 2 miles, the 3 o'clock, and Miami Magic is the 15 to 8 favourite, ahead of Tripoli Flyer at 4 to 1. Celtic Dino also 4 to 1, 6 to 1 Royce, 9 to 1 Starcross Lover, and Andershan, 16 to 1 Road Less Travelled, 50 to 1 about Blues Singer. Andy, always, as you know, big fan of your speed figures with Novice Hurdles. Does the market have this right according to your numbers?
Slightly different to the way we've got it, but I think there's lots of horses with potential. And funny enough, I did have a bet in this race, anti-post, in midweek, in the hope that A, my horse would run, which he is, but B, more predominantly, that there'd be there'll be 7 or less. But there isn't. There's still a good chance that one might be withdrawn, by the way.
Yeah.
Because they end up being declared doesn't always to say that they all end up going. The horse I backed is Celtic Dino. He got well beat by Miami Magic at Aintree last time out, but that was kind of predictable because Celtic Dino wants quick ground. I actually thought he didn't run too badly considering the conditions weren't in his favour. Miami Magic obviously ran really well against a good horse, Potter's Charm. Is it Potter's Charm? It is Potter's Charm, isn't it? So he's run perfectly well, Miami Magic, and we know what he did the time before when he beat a good field here and a good time previously. So he's got course and distance form. But Celtic Dino's tailor-made for this race. He goes really well right-handed. When he won at Wincanton, he clocked a good number. When he won at Ascot, he was really good. He jumps well, he travels well. The yard are in great form. They had a couple of winners of the day at Carlisle. If he doesn't want to make the run in, fine, but he can make the run in if nothing else wants to go on. You got Andershan and Miami Magic if he wants to sit behind those. Royce likes to go forward, so there's an opportunity for Dylan Thomas perhaps to just take a pull. It's a good race this, and Tripoli Flyer looked really good when he won at Musselburgh the day. He's a massive big unit, Tripoli Flyer, loads of size and scope and substance about him. I think he'll make a lovely chaser going down the line. So this is quite a good race, the Dovecote. Again, it'll have no bearing on the Supreme novices because none of these are good enough to run in the Supreme against the likes of Capac de Bourg and Romeo Coolio, but they could be Aintree bound, let's say, afterwards. So festivals further down the line, yes, we'll get some kind of clues. But as it stands, a really good race in its own right. No Cheltenham chat here. Let's just see which is the best. And I think Celtic Dino was one of the most likely winners based on the time figures that we've got.
4-1 Celtic Dino. Johnny, who do you pick out of this lot?
Yeah, these aren't horses I'll be looking every day of the week. But Star Over actually did see he went in Downpatrick on his second start when he was with Colin Murphy. Disappointed. He's been very, very good so far for Neil Holland. He's been left in the Supreme, and they're sort of saying he's unlikely to win there. But this has been the plan since he won at Hereford. Absolutely bolted up. The horse was no star, but just looks to have a nice progressive profile. And he'd be for me training the race, but not a race that I would be one.
Yeah, 9-1 Starcross Lover there, the one for Johnny. The final race, we'll have a quick look at the Ida as well over in Newcastle, but the final race here at Kempton where we've got prices is the Ladbrokes Trophy over 3 miles, where Highland is the 3-1 favourite ahead of Lowry's Bar at 5-1, Our Power 6-1, Beachcomber 7-1, Karate Dory is 17-2, Golden Sun 9-1, 16-1 bar those. I know Heltham and Tarmus both 14-1, 16-1 bar those. Andy, who's your pick here?
I'd have to go with the winner of this race a couple of years ago, Our Power. He was good, really good that day. Proved he likes fastest ground, Kempton, blah, blah, blah. He's had 2 really eye-catching runs so far this season beyond King Turgeon 2 runs ago. And then the ground would have been soft enough for him beyond Chantry House, but he still ran really well. So he comes in there in great nick. The yard's in great nick. He's obviously been trained specifically for the race, which I like. Maybe other horses have got other targets. Lowry's Bar with Cheltenham around the corner. He could run in the novices handicap there. And they should go a good gallop, which will suit Our Power. This race often comes to horses just slightly off the pace as well. I look through the sort of data and the sort of tail of the tape of how the win, which kind of horse wins this race. Beachcomber's in there probably to make the run in. The other horses fighting for the lead. The Highland, Lowry's Bar. So Our Power likes to just sit off it. Might just be the beneficiary like he was a couple of years ago with a strong pace. And he's around about, 6-1, Our Power?
6-1, yeah.
Yeah, good solid each way bet there with 4 places, Our Power.
Johnny?
Yeah, this definitely wouldn't be the race I'd be listening to me on anyway. These staying handicap chases in Britain. But he's quite solid. Hopefully I might have something in Ireland for you.
Okay, well let's do that now. What do you got for us over in Ireland on Saturday or at any time over the weekend?
Well, yeah, we've a cracking renewal of the big race, the Bobby Joe at Fairyhouse Saturday. Bobby Joe was actually owned outside the pub where I had my first pint, effectively. And it's funny when he was paraded in school after he won the national in what was probably about 98, 99, and I had absolutely no interest whatsoever. I had no interest in racing, and I think I remember muttering something about animal rights to the fellow beside me as he was brought into the school, like some nonsense. And then they erected a statue to Bobby Joe outside the pub, and it's known that people get up on the statue after a few pints and they can get stuck on it if it's a frosty night and all that. I think Paul Carberry's even been up on it, but it's actually a really cool part of Montbellion. Like, it's a real iconic part of the town now, the Bobby Joe statue outside the Hawthorn, where all those dreams were made and lost all those years ago. But anyway, this is a cracking race. I'm going to go with Nick Rocket after his win at Gorn. The form of the Trieste is going to be put to the test after the second and the third run today. We will record this on Thursday in that trial at Punchestown, that rearranged race. But he was very, very good on the day, Nick Rocket. Willie has a hell of a hand here. I am Maximus, who I dare say could have the key to the Grand National, the entry national for JP McManus, Capodanno in it. French Dynamite, and obviously intense raffles as well running. This is going to be a hell of a race, but amazingly, we could have more runners here than in the Champion Hurdle. Nick Rocket, without knowing the prices, he's hard to pick a hole in, and comes here with a nice kind of up and coming profile off 11 stone flat. But a race I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah, no prices as of yet, but keep your eye on Nick Rocket there for Johnny. Andy, we'll have a quick look at the Ida before we let you go. This is the 210 in Newcastle on Saturday. Where O'Connell is the 5-1 favourite ahead of Collector's Item at 7-1. Angus Cragg 7-1, Passing Well 8-1, 11-1. Choose the News and Egbert 12-1, Sporting Ace 12-1, History of Fashion. I like the way you're thinking. 14-1 bar those, 18 in as it stands. Andy, who's getting your selection?
Yeah, I'll probably take a bit of a punt, fun enough, with an Irish horse. Johnny will know him quite well. History of Fashion.
Stays longer than the mother-in-law.
Absolutely, yeah, he does, doesn't he? Yeah, he's just hit a rich vein of form at his ripe old age of 11. He looked to be going nowhere. He pulled up a couple of times, and then all of a sudden he clicked into gear when he raced a bit more prominently at Down Raw 2 runs ago, and then he followed up at Fairy House over 3 mile 6, again staying on very strongly. And I think he comes in here with arguably the best piece of form, courtesy of that run behind Percival Le Galois in the red hot Paddy Power Chase. Run over the Christmas period. Now, time figure wise, that's the best handicap chase that we've got so far this season. No great surprise, therefore, that the winner's gone in again. I think he actually won over hurdles, didn't he, Percival Le Galois? We've also seen Nick Rocket win the Thyestes, who finished 4th. 3-card Bragg, who finished 7th, won a very good beginner's chase next time out at Navan, lowering the colours of some good horses. Now, History of Fashion was always up with the speed that day, and he kept on quite well, but he couldn't quite go with the main players who probably had more class, more speed than him. The likes of Percival, Midnight Fred, Pinkerton, Galway Plate winner. They're genuinely top class 3 mile handicappers, and obviously graded horses in weight in some of those. And for a horse rated in his mid 120s, he just got done for speed. But he did stay on quite well on the running, I noticed, suggesting that stepping back up to a marathon trip will really suit him. This 4 mile one should be absolutely ideal. So yeah, he's 14-1, 14-1, something like that. So a lot of people won't know much about History of Fashion, but hopefully that won't be the case come sort of 2:20 on Saturday.
One horse as well, George, I want to mention, each to their own in the bumper at Ferry House. I was at Navan. It was quite an excitement. I'm not really a bumper person per se, but I was at Navan on the 18th of January, spinning a yarn, each to their own, and Saint Quanon. They were all well touted in a bumper. They were all they fought out the finish. Barry Connell and Finney Maguire, each to their own, went off favourite, travelled like the best horse in the race. I see Willie has a couple in it, one by Wootton Bassett, who I think Wootton Bassett, just looking here, has had 1 bumper winner ever from 6 runners. The next pointer, who's quite interesting, and another horse for the Costellos. But each to their own is, if he's any sort of price, I think he's quite exciting.
Great stuff. There we go. Thank you to Johnny and to Andy for sharing their tips, thoughts, and insight. Looking back at last weekend's racing, looking ahead to this weekend at Kempton, looking to the Cheltenham Festival, looking ahead to racing over in Ireland as well. Plenty covered in the last hour or so. And if you haven't already got a PricedUp account, please make sure you go and sign up for one now. They'll look after you as a viewer of this. They'll be boosting selections on the show and plenty of other boosts across sports every single day. Oddschecker have you covered for your fixed odds betting needs, best prices, booking offers, free bets, and Andy's tips straight to Oddschecker every single morning of racing. We'll be back again next week for a preview including the Gold Cup and the Champion Chase. Exciting times indeed as we get 1 week closer to the Cheltenham Festival. In the meantime, enjoy the racing and please ensure that you're gambling responsibly.